He may not have won a title at UFC 92, but I think it's safe to say this guy ended up being the most talked about story at UFC 292. He is the future, although I think right now he's actually the present. Let me welcome in Ian Machado Garry. Ian, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? It's good to be here.
Thank you. I'm fantastic, man. Thanks for taking the time. Congratulations on an amazing win. I know all of them feel special, but this one felt bigger. Boston, obviously main card of a pay-per-view, all these kind of things. How was it for you?
Absolutely sensational. I feel like this week couldn't have been any better. The love, the reception that I was getting from the Boston crowd, the love that I was getting at the weigh-ins, the press conference, the fight night, the open workout that I held to give back to the fans and get them excited for the fight night, everything. It was perfect. And I went out there and I put on the perfect performance and I had fun and I enjoyed myself. And it makes me even more excited for what's next.
I love it. You know, when you're starting to become a superstar, which I think a lot of people would agree and say you are, there comes with expectations and pressure, right? Like, you know, you're putting on an open workout in an Irish bar like days before the fight. You're showing up at the press conference, all these kind of things. The key is going out there and performing, though, right? And I think that says a lot about you that you went out there and performed, because you got to be honest. Like, some guys kind of they kind of fade under the heat of the spotlight. It's almost like you embrace it.
Look, I'm a fan. First and foremost, I'm a fan of the sport. I grew up watching the sport. Do you know what I mean? Like, I watched Connor cause trouble and chaos and enjoy it. And I'm exactly the same type of person. I love being mischievous. I love being disruptive. And to be able to go out there and be put on a stage to speak to the fans, to get the fans excited about a matchup. Firstly, it's a performance. I am building up a fight. I'm building up a storyline to something that gets the fans emotionally invested in something. At the end of the day, I am a competitor and a fighter, but I have to be a very intelligent man to promote a fight as well. And I believe I do it very, very differently and in a very fun way for myself. And this week just showed that. I go out there, I talk shit at a press conference, I get people excited. I'm smacking it on social media. With my full-time videography, he's just bashing out daily content, showing the fans what I'm doing, where I am, who I'm training with, how excited I am. And then we go and hold an open workout in Boston the night before the fight. We have thousands of people show up at this pub to the point at which no one can fit in the bleeding thing. We have to move outside onto the road to get photos and talk to people. And then I go out there on Saturday night and I show just how good I am against the guy. Oh, there we go. Against the guy who's had the most wins in welterweight history. Says it all.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and obviously, like, here's the thing. Like, listen. I am a big fan of the mental warfare aspect. I think the mental game. I know a lot of people say it, but it's true. The mental game is just as, if not more important than the physical side, because if you're not mentally there, you're not going to perform correctly. How do you, I'm laughing about it. I know it's a serious subject, but like, how do you manage to make Neil Magny like the bad guy, and how do you actually get him fired up to the point where he's like talking trash to you? And listen, I like Neil. Neil's a super nice guy. Like, Neil is like one step below like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson as far as like just nice dudes who like never get involved in anything controversial, and yet somehow you have him shouting at you during the fight. You have him like flipping out during the press. Like, listen, I'm not making light of the situation, because I know it was something.
No, I get where you're coming from. How do I turn a nice guy into the bad guy? I don't believe I turn the nice guy into anything. I think I expose him for what he is. Neil said the words he said in that press conference. The words that I used as ammunition came out of his own mouth. His words, where I'm going to beat that. I'm a father, and I've been accustomed to giving that beating, and I'm going to give Ian Garry the same beating. You don't say something like that. I've just had a little boy. I'm a father. I'm a protector now. I have a life that I need to look after and care for the rest of my existence. And when I hear a grown man sit there and say that he's got accustomed to whooping that ass or that kind of ass whooping, and he sat at home with a 3-year-old. Neil, so you've just done yourself in. I'm going to absolutely sit there and hound you about that because it's your words, your own actions. I'm just putting them out there for the world in a different way. I'm just saying it as his words were. And the truth is that whole subject should not be taken lightly. I called everybody out at the press conference at the end and said, I don't know how any one of you didn't pick up on that. I don't know how anyone didn't bring more light to that. At the end of the day, when I stood in that octagon, I had talk to talk. I had exposed him for what he was, which is a fucking piece of shit. And then I went in there, and this guy in that octagon is a dangerous man. He has the most wins in welterweight for a reason. And I showed with emotion. I fought with emotion. I absolutely put on a clinic because you cannot say stuff like that in this world and get away with it. And that was justice for me.
You obviously your last fight with Daniel Rodriguez, you go out there and get a head kick knockout in the first round. You've had a lot of finishes, obviously. I know a lot of people are asking you afterwards, like, do you wish you would have got a finish? Do you wish we got a finish? Now I know as a finisher you want to finish. There's no doubt about that. But I'm always super impressed when a guy can go out and just absolutely decimate somebody over 3 rounds. When you get a 30-24 scorecard, you've done something right. And to me, like, that experience is invaluable that you can do it round after round, minute after minute. Listen, I know you want to go out there and finish Neil Magny. Everyone knows you want to go out there and finish Neil Magny. But is there still something satisfying about 30-24ing a guy? Because do you realize how rare that is in this sport?
You know, the last time there was a 30-24?
Trying to think what it would be. What was it? I'm sure you know.
I know what it was, and I know how long ago it was. It's been 7 years since we've seen a 30-24 scorecard, and it was Khabib versus Edson Barboza.
Oh, wow, yeah. And
so the last person before me to get that scorecard was Khabib. So that's the dominance we're talking about now. Just in a very different way. Everybody wants to finish. But more importantly, is getting your hand raised. And I believe that performance was so dominant, so clinical, so smart and intelligent. I took that fight on 10 days' notice. I was fighting a completely different body, a completely different stylistic matchup. And I turned it all around and came up with the perfect plan to completely maul Neil Magny. And I went out there and I put on a clinic against the guy who has the most wins in the division and showed him just how good I am. I made him look like he's never fought before. That's the level of dominance we're dealing with now.
And it's crazy. You're obviously so young still, but it's kind of crazy when I go back and watch your first UFC fight to now, and it's not like it was 8 years ago. It was, still fairly to see the growth and the evolution of what you've done in your game is pretty amazing. And I know you're going to continue to learn and grow as you work towards becoming a champion, but that to me is key, right? Like seeing that, like I go back and watch that fight, and it's not, I won't say it's totally night and day, because obviously you still have some of the same skills, but it is kind of night and day, like seeing that first fight to now and again. That wasn't like 8 years ago.
There has been a massive evolution in my game over the last 18 months. And it has really been since I've just hounded this thirst for knowledge. My family, my team, everyone around me understands how much I want to learn and how much I want to grow. And for me to be able to feed that hunger of knowledge, I have to travel the world and learn from all of these amazing people. I have to see different stylistic matchups in the gym. I have to feel different grappling martial arts. I have to feel a super strong wrestler in America. I have to feel a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. But then I also have to go out and feel these kind of Russian Greco wrestlers. I have to see and experience it all to get my feel, to get my balance, my understanding. And I'm not going to stop this nomadic lifestyle anytime soon. I'm going to keep traveling, keep growing, keep learning, because every single time I fight, you're going to see an evolution. And whenever I fight next, you will see another jump up in level, in experience, in knowledge, in everything that I do, because that is what I do best. I change, I evolve, I grow at such a rapid rate that the best time for anybody to beat me was yesterday.
I love it. I love it. Let me ask you this, Ian. You know, I mentioned, of course, the kind of war of words, what happened with Neil Magny, and you said like you didn't say anything out of turn that he didn't say himself, right? Like that was the whole point.
Exactly.
Jeff Neal, we know the story, the T-shirt, it obviously got under his skin. We know that. I know you hear this all the time, and I understand it. Like, of course, you're from Ireland, so immediately people bring up Conor McGregor. We all know that, and Conor, of course, seems to be a big supporter of yours, which is awesome to see. But one thing I loved about Conor early in his UFC career, and he's continued, I think he's the best trash talker, whatever you want to say, in the history of sports. But, you know, there were times more recently where it felt like maybe Conor kind of crossed the line. Some of the Poirier stuff kind of bothered me when he talked about his wife and things like that. That kind of bugged me. Can I ask, like, when you look at the mental warfare side of things, like, is there a line, or because it seems like you've been very intelligent when you go after a guy, like you're using what they've done against them, and I mean that as a compliment. It's not like Jeff Neal didn't do what he did. It's not like Neil Magny didn't say what he said. You didn't put words in his mouth.
Didn't say what he said. No.
Is that
any lines?
And I because I think Conor was like, Conor's like, everyone remembers the Jeremy Stevens thing. He's like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, just the timing, the red pants. Like, there's so many moments that, but again, I think there is a line. Like when you start talking about people's wives and stuff that wasn't brought into it. You know what I mean? Is that, do you agree? Do you agree there is a line to cross?
Look, let's put it this way. There was a line I could have crossed in this build up to this fight, but I didn't. And I knew it, and I didn't say it. I'm not going to get into it. But there's a line there. Now, to your point, when you speak about there's a line in trash talk, you go beyond it, it's not conceived the same way by people. It's considered, what's the right wording? Trying to word this correctly, because I understand what you mean when it, like, your wife was in me DMs, the kind of thing with Dustin. I get that. Conor's a very intelligent man, and the way he built up fights and the way he got people emotionally invested was building up a storyline, was building up animosity that was there or wasn't there. When we see Michael Jordan compete as one of the best competitors we've ever seen compete, he manifested and manipulated his own mind to think someone had said something about him in the past so that he could go out there with a competitive hunger, a competitive edge. When you look at the greats, they have something that separates them from the rest of the pack. And it's a will to compete, and they will do anything possible to go out there and win. I have not stepped over any single boundary yet. Neil Magny said the words he said. I just said them on a bigger platform to a bigger stage and repeated his own words to himself. The only person he has to blame for those words is himself. And I don't know if you know this, he didn't fucking apologize. He didn't take back what he said. He sat there with a smile on his face and then started talking shit. He didn't once sit there and go, I didn't say that. That's not what I meant. I'm sorry if it came across that way. No, he sat there and he fucking left it. Which makes me think even more so to the point that what he said is true. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Jeff Neal, there is no fucking argument. Jeff Neal fucked up in his lifetime and got a mugshot. Absolutely, I'm going to use and abuse that if I'm going to be your opponent. Absolutely. Jeff Neal pulled out because of mind games, because of a fucking t-shirt that I made and sold on Instagram. I got so deep in that man's mind that he didn't even make it to the fight. He was so pissed off. But he has nobody else to blame other than himself. And that's it. I haven't overstepped any boundaries yet when it comes to trash talk. If anything, I've been perfect. I've been perfectly underneath that line that you're speaking about. And I don't see any need to cross that right now until somebody else crosses it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, that's what I said. I thought that was what was ultimately brilliant about it, is that you were using what they did against him. It wasn't like you were making things up to make, animosity. And I get all that. I do. So I love the mental warfare. I do. I love that side of it. I'm not going to lie. I mean, we all do. Anyone who says they don't is kind of lying. We all love it. We all love that part of it.
And if you don't like it and you don't get it, that's because you're not seeing it the right way. Firstly, mental warfare is about getting in someone's head. How many times have we seen Neil Magny emotional going into a fight? How many times have we seen him like shouting back at someone, getting emotionally invested? Do you think for 1 second that he didn't go home? He took time out of his day to get ready for a press conference. He showed up at the press conference. And when someone asked him a question, I stood him down. I told him to sit down, reflect on what he'd said, and you're going to just sit there. No one's asking me a question. And one person tried to ask him a question, I shut it down. You don't think that he's going to go home and be pissed off that he didn't get to speak a single word. And then the next day at the weigh-ins, he gets booed coming out. Do you not think he's going to go home and feel that energy? And then you show up a fight night. All those emotions are running through your body. Oh, this kid said this about me. He said what? You know what I mean? He called me this little Irish kid running around. You know, he's sitting there saying this little Irish kid said this about me. I'm going to go out there and I'm manhandling him. As he said, which hand do you want? The front side or the back hand? Making a joke about beating someone when you were the one who fucking joked about beating the kids. I went out there and I whooped his ass. And I proved to him just the level of this game. It was justice, and it was done in the perfect manner.
So, Ian, and I think the mental warfare aspect of it, no matter who it is a huge factor, and I think that's a huge weapon at your disposal, and you have to be mentally strong to be able to do that. Now, in the immediate aftermath of your fight, of course, you called for the Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fight. Now, that did make a lot of sense based on where you were going in terms of beating Neil Magny and where you're going in the division. Now, afterwards, Dana White said Wonderboy turned it down. Now, I haven't talked to Stephen. I have no idea what happened. And we know, listen, this is the sport. Who knows? We've all heard the rumor. I'm sure you probably heard it too, that maybe Wonderboy was going to fight Kamaru Usman, a guy I'm sure you're familiar with at Kill Cliff, maybe occasionally running into him. What did you make of that? Or I don't know what conversation you had afterwards. Like, what is the word on the Wonderboy fight? Because it did seem to make a lot of sense. Also, Madison Square Garden, I know he's fought there before. Massive fight card. John Jones fighting Stipe Miocic would be a huge con. So, kind of your reaction to hearing that, and have you heard anything since then about Wonderboy? Is there still a possibility this happens?
I think there's every possibility this fight happens. It makes so much sense for this fight to materialize, for the fans, for the UFC, the build-up to this fight, the excitement that this fight would generate for the UFC fans, for the organization. It would be phenomenal. And to be able to do it on a card like an MSG, or to be able to do it on a pay-per-view in December, or to be able to headline a fight night in an arena somewhere would be even better. Do you know what I mean? I am excited to fight Wonderboy, and I believe that this matchup will materialize. I believe that God works in very, very, very beautiful ways. And for some reason, I end up getting everything I want. So my energy, everything that I have, is absolutely expecting that Wonderboy fight to be the contract that's put down in front of me soon. I'm just going to sit here and wait, because today is a new day. And if he said no yesterday, today is a different day.
There's no doubt Wonderboy is a really good fighter. You don't stay in that top 5, top 6 range in the UFC for 5 years, 6 years, whatever it's been, without being a very, very good fighter. And I know you kind of joked afterwards, like, how do you mentally warfare with a guy like Wonderboy, because he literally is like the nicest guy ever. They actually call him like the nice guy title. Can I ask you about Wonderboy? What you think of Wonderboy as a fighter and as an opponent?
I know Wonderboy as a friend. He knows my family. We have worked together on karate combat. We have spent time with each other. My wife and him work together on karate combat, and they do shows. He has met my kid. We have talked. We have chilled out. He is an amazing guy. I am not fighting Wonderboy because of malice, because of bad intentions. I'm fighting Wonderboy out of the highest of respect. But what the man has done and achieved as primarily a striker in this sport is sensational. 57-0 as a kickboxer, goes out there in MMA and does all of his tricks in the cage and proves how good he is every time he gets into the octagon, but just how good of a striker he is. I'm going out there to compete against one of the best strikers the world has ever seen. And that is what excites me about this opponent, this fight. Isn't malice. It'll be nothing but respect. And I just want to go out there and prove that I'm the best striker in the world. And that to do that, I have to beat Wonderboy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it is a really fun matchup. I mean, and also one thing that I know Wonderboy had talked about, like he was talking about taking a step back to fight Michel Pereira at the time, who wasn't in the rankings. Well, you are a ranked fighter, so that's a little different. Like you're not a guy who doesn't have that ranking, who doesn't have a name. And I said this when Khamzat Chimaev was coming up into fighting. I said, you fight Khamzat at the time, even though he wasn't like your teammate, Gilbert Burns, took that opportunity because he saw the appeal of that. Now, obviously, Gilbert's a gamer. He's going to fight whoever they throw in front of him. But also, again, there was still something to gain from fighting a Khamzat Chimaev because he was getting so much attention. There's still a lot to gain from fighting Ian Machado Garry because while you are also ranked, you're also becoming one of the biggest names in the sport.
100%. So for Wonderboy, there's a lot of pull there as well. But also, you know that I'm a striker at heart. We've seen the Wonderboy Kevin Holland fight. We've seen the way that the fans in that stadium erupted when those two started striking. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be mesmerizing. And it's going to be so fucking exciting for any single fan that has bought a ticket to the me and Wonderboy fight. That will happen. It's going to be amazing. And I believe that for Wonderboy, there is just much pull for me to fight Wonderboy as there is for Wonderboy to fight me. I'm young. I'm undefeated. I'm a prospect that everybody is talking about as potentially being a future champion. I'm a striker. So Wonderboy knows I'm not going to go out there and try to grab his legs and wrestle him. Right? He knows that I want to prove that I'm a better striker. So he knows what he's getting into. So for him, it's one of the easier matchups in the division, right? Why not take it? Why not go out there, say yes, sign the dotted line, fight me over 5 rounds, and prove who the best striker in the division is? The only reason he would say no is because he knows who's better.
Can I ask real quick, Ian, you trained with a great team down at Kill Cliff FC. Gilbert Burns I believe he was in your corner, and he told one of our guys, did an interview with him after the fight, and he said, Ian Garry is a total badass, and he's going to be a champion within a few years. And I know one of the good things about that team down there in Florida is the amount of good work you can get with the guys down there. Now, I had mentioned afterwards when Dana said Wonderboy turned it down, I immediately said, it'd be a fun fight in terms of rankings. I said, you and Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat is, I think, number 6, number 5, right around there. And he obviously lost his fight with Kelvin Gastelum. And then someone said, they both work at Kill Cliff. And I was like, oh, that's right. I kind of forgot about that. Can I ask, because I actually had a conversation with Grant Dawson in the lightweight division after his last win, and he's in the lightweight division where Dustin Poirier is, where Mateusz Gamrot is, where Armin Sarukian are. They're all training partners at American Top Team. How do you approach that? Because you got Gilbert Burns, you got Vicente Luque, you got Shavkat. How do you deal with that? Because now you're in, the top 10, and there's only four other guys who are right around you who are teammates, or 3 other guys, at least that many.
Yes. There's your answer. There's 4 other guys. That's it. When it comes to opponents, everyone can have their say on who I should fight next. I told everybody who I want to fight next. I've called my shot. I'm going to get my shot. I want Wonderboy next. That's it. Talking to me about Shavkat or Gilbert or teammates or anything else, it's not in my mind. I'm focused on Wonderboy, and I want that Wonderboy fight because of it's the passing of the baton in my mind. Ian is now the greatest striker in the welterweight division. Here you go, sir. Take it, run with it. Off you go in your career. That is my mindset of this fight, proving who the best striker in the division is. But also, I've said this, I'm not rushing myself to a title fight. Shavkat is ranked 6th in the world. Do you know what I mean? He's going to be having to fight one of the guys in the top 4 next. And then it's a title shot after that. I want 4 fights before I fight for a world title. I'm 25 years of age. I want there to be absolutely no argument that when I get a title shot, I have beaten anyone in my way. I have beaten everybody that I've been put up against. And for me, I have to beat the likes of Wonderboy, Usman, Colby Covington, and then go get my title shot. So I have a long road ahead of me still to prove just how good I am to the UFC, to the fans, to myself, to anybody on this planet that enjoys UFC and MMA. I have a long road left to go. Wonderboy is my only opponent. That is the only person I'm focused on right now. I look up in the rankings, not down, nowhere else. Wonderboy is the focus for me.
I also love the attitude you say there that you're taking, you're going to take your time to get there. You're not rushing, you know what I mean? Because, some guys like me, like I want a title shot in 1 fight, 2 fights. And also talk about manifesting. You mentioned obviously the goal, the love of fighting at home in Dublin in front of the Irish crowd. We all know what that's going to be like. Dana afterwards said, 1 more fight, and that's there. Like you have to admit, like it's cool that you just manifested these things. So you said it, and now Dana is basically saying like we want him to fight at MSG because it's a huge. We know it again, much like Boston, huge Irish crowd going to be there. We've seen it all. We know what it's going to be like. So of course I understand why he wants you to fight at MSG, and he's like, then we'll do Dublin. Yeah, like you're manifesting everything right now.
I am making everything that I've ever wanted happen in life. I'm getting the opponents. I'm getting the fight nights I want. I'm getting everything I want because I am only focused on one thing at a time. Wonderboy is next. I don't care whether it's November at MSG. I don't mind whether it's Vegas in December, whether it's a fight night, wherever it may be in December. Once it's in front of a stadium of 15, 20,000 people so that I can go out there and show the world just how good I am and feel that energy from the fans. Wonderboy is next. And after Wonderboy, when I get that title as the best striker the division has ever seen, I'm going back to Dublin and I'm going to dismantle whoever has stood across that octagon for me. And I'm going to show the world the power of Irish MMA.
I love it. I can't wait. The passion that Irish. My family's Irish now. I'm not Irish. I wasn't born in Ireland by any stretch of imagination. I have a friend who lives.
So you understand it?
I do. I have a cousin who lives in Dundrum, right outside of Dublin. So I understand.
Yes.
I love it. And I said the same. I remember saying the same thing to Connor. I think it was like right after the Max Holloway fight, where I was like, I know that energy's there, and you want that passion, you want that energy, and there is something special. I know Dana said it before. When you have a whole country behind you, there's a different feeling. We don't do that as much in the United States, obviously. We do have hometown heroes, things like that guy from a certain state or a certain city. They kind of get that passion, that kind of energy. But when you have an entire country behind you, it is a different feeling, right? And getting a chance to fight for the Irish fans. It's a different
power behind you. It fuels you with so much more because you know that it is more than just yourself. That you have people who are excited and emotionally invested. And I've got Ireland behind me, but I've also started to get Brazil behind me now too. And honestly, I couldn't be more excited for what the future has for me in store.
What does it mean to you? I mean, when you
I'm gonna have to cut you off 1 second. This is gonna have to be the last one. I have another interview to jump on, and they're messaging me now.
No worries. So I mentioned it, and this will be the last one. I mentioned it. Gilbert Burns says, total badass. He's going to be a champion within a few years. Give me you said the timeline. You mentioned that as well. So last question is this. 1 year from now, August 2024, where is Ian Garry sitting? What is Ian Garry doing? What is Ian Machado Garry doing 1 year from now?
He's a legit title contender, fighting some of the baddest dudes in the world, traveling the world, learning and growing his craft, and exciting the fan base of the UFC.
I love it. Ian, thank you for taking the time. I really do appreciate it. First time we've had a chance to talk. Hope we can do it again. I appreciate it. Have a great, little bit of time off. Hopefully we see you in November, December, whatever it is. Thank you.
You will see me again very soon. Don't you worry about that.
I sincerely mean it. And thank you for the time.
Take care. All the best, pal.